Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Circle Anne Salve Women. I am on my way to the gym, and you know what? This is what I do, and it's so nice to be able to do that on a regular basis when you can. Just really for any of you out there, whether if you can't go to the gym, whatever it is that holds you back, run in place, get up and just move. Whether it's just walking around where, your office or your home or your apartment or your room, do something that really helps to just get your oxygen going, your breathing in, a steady pace so that your mind, your heart, your spirit and your body can really feel just the uplifting that is necessary for all of us. I know that for me, it is something that's so important for me to just go and just get it all out of my system. And then, believe it or not, no matter how exhausted you are, it's funny how rejuvenated you feel, how refreshed you feel. For me, when I go work out, it releases all the toxins that have tried to really enter me. And, anything that my mind was thinking, it helps to just work it through and burn it off, And so anyone out there, if working out's not your thing, at least do something, working out in your garden or doing some artwork. As you can see, my next canvas is still blank, and that's okay. Again, you have to understand that it's okay to just say, you know what, I'm trying. And when things get in the way, just still be purposeful, still be intentional in knowing that you're going in that path of getting things done. I'm not saying idling. I'm not saying trying to find something busy to do. I know that for me, social media is not my thing, and you would think, because, as many videos as I've done, but at the same time, I don't have time for it. And you also have to protect and shield yourself of what comes into your world versus what you put out. And that is something that people need to remember, because there's always something trying to engage into this, right? Or this, or just this. And then you have to tell yourself, I have certain barricades, I have certain walls. You build this tower not to be so much defensive, but really having that armor and making certain that you are doing your best to protect your light from any darkness trying to come in. So having said that, lessons in never raising the bar when giving. When I wrote this article, it was about the time that just shortly after, when my husband and I and our younger two boys visited my cousin's home for like a Christmas celebration. And it's just so fun, to be around someone who's so loyal and you've always had high respect and regard for, because they've never shown any other color other than the real nature of how to be right in just being righteously justified. And I've never really seen this person do anything other than care for others and just be real. And you appreciate that. So it was interesting in just listening to he and my husband having this conversation about his favorite memory and Christmas memories were going to our home and back in our native country. And I was just so fascinated. And you could tell that at first he hesitated, and he kind of stopped. And I said, no, I want to hear too, because I was the youngest of 5 living. And so at that time, when I was listening to him, I wanted to also be brought back to those good times. Because when we came here and immigrated here, times were trying. And, it was like you knew you had troubles and challenges at school, but everyone came home to silence. You never wanted to talk about it. And I went through like 6 different elementary schools, just those kind of things. And you don't want to fall victim to your life. You just know it's your day, it's your week, it's your year, and you just have to go through it. You learn to just go about it. Everybody's personalities are different. And so you knew that your siblings were going through life in their own ways, through their own vantage point. And they were being resilient and being just survivals in the way that they thought that best to do. And so for me, it was always just a way of moving forward, and just being thankful. Honestly, as crazy as it may seem, even though your home could be devastatingly silent and somewhat, you look back, lacking, right? I don't want to say dysfunctional because we could have gradients of that, but at the same time, the hardest time, it was okay because you felt the love, and I was just thankful to be under the safety and security of my mama and my papa. And but the thing is that you hurt at times too, because quietly, of course, because what I mentioned in my article is you would go to school after like the Christmas winter break, and you would hear other people talk about the gifts they got and how excited they were, or of course they're wearing it, or they're talking about the toys and so forth, and you found yourself sitting in silence and just listening, because you had nothing to share. And my papa was very adamant about not giving gifts, and whether he could afford them or not, I don't know it to what degree, because it's so strange how my cousin brought the time that my papa played Santa at one time, giving out gifts. And, when they were young, they could remember all that. So I thought to myself, man, those must have been amazing times, because here it turned out where there were years where we didn't have a Christmas tree. And I still remember one time where one of the very last time, this second to last year, where my parents, my papa just asked my two siblings to like just stand in front of us and tell us jokes, and that was their Christmas. And you did that, and you were thankful for that. And it, like, I look back, no, I don't want to go through that again, especially because I went through losing one of my brothers the year after. And it was like he and his girlfriend, I mentioned this in the article, he was able to like come up to, he had gotten a job, and he and his girlfriend had put money obviously together to get us gifts. And it was so awesome to be able to go back to school and talk about something that you got, to be proud of something. And it's funny because those memories stick with you, and you're so grateful for them. And yet I look back and think to myself, I had to have gone through that to know what I never want to feel again. The memories stick, and the blessings are still there. You find every light in every moment, and yet you have been taught to really solidify yourself in the meaning of just survival, right? And finding good in everything. And so for me, and not to make it just anything dramatic, because life is what it is and life happens, but by the time I got to play mom, I just wasn't so good at like forgetting where I came from. And so I was always getting like the essentials. I mean, I was packing things that, it's funny, I've come back to that, where it was like, giving someone like a brand new toothbrush. And now I put like the battery operated ones, which my younger two actually really, really enjoy. And I'm thankful for that. But, my husband would look at these things, he'll be like, that's not Christmas. And I'd be like, oh, okay. And so when things got pretty good for us, I mean, I have to remind you in my article that our first Christmas was going to the dollar store, and we found joy in going through the aisles, and with my husband leading the way with, just saying, this is going to be fun, just really getting us geared up to look at it, if, in a great manner and excitement. And so we got everyone we could think of like dollar gifts, and, which ends up at the, we wrapped them and then, going to this gift exchange or so family gathering, we gave what we gave. And it was like, what? It felt, of course, there may be a slight of like a timidity in doing so. But man, after that year, there's still this elephant that I keep that and I will never let it go, because it reminds, and you know, people have those picture frames sometimes reminding themselves of where their great grandmother used to live, and you know, now where they're at. That is my symbolic reminder of where I've come from, and just, you know, not to find sadness in it, but to find perseverance from that those given moments, where it's like when you look at it, it symbolizes so much more than what anyone could ever understand. And it just brings so much happiness and light in my heart to know that you have moved forward from it all. And so for me, it was always great to get to see my husband excited about, you know, being able to give gifts. And every year, I just knew as I'm wrapping him, he would, or, you know, getting ready, and I'd say, you know, here's the things that I have. And I would just quietly just be, you know, in a room with him, and he could see that. He was like, you know, he would get excited, because sometimes he would come, I mean, most of the time he'd say, what do we have? What's the list? And my goodness, you know, older kids, they had their list. And so I would just be like, oh, here we are, you know, and it was like, nope, we're getting that and more. And we just had fun, because we both really didn't come from being able to be exuberant from what we could give, you know? And so we really enjoyed those years. And yet in my article, I remember there was one year where it was strange, you know, as in partnership, you just know not to ask, you know, not to put a damper in already the spirit of your partner. You just knew something's not right, and guess what, I'm going to be that friend to say nothing and just go with the flow. And I remember wrapping stuff up and my husband just laying on the couch, and all of a sudden I look and I see on one of the stockings this paper sticking out, and oh, my heart hurt, because you know, it was just like one of those moments when you knew, I'm already going to fail. I already know what that means. So as I'm reading it, I knew that one of my children had changed their list last minute. I don't know how long it had been there, but I knew it had been just not too long ago, because we knew we had already gotten everything that we, you know, possibly could for that they had asked for. And it was Christmas Eve, and so my husband gets up, and with everything, you know, all the energy that I could see in him that he managed to, you know, give, he was like, let's just go and get what's on that list. And I'm like, my love, it's too late, it's Christmas Eve, everything is closed. And so no one wants to feel defeated, no one wants to feel what they know is coming is not going to be what they want to happen. And we had to endure it. We had to endure it the next day when our children were opening gifts. And I honestly would think if it had been me as a child, it would have been like more than enough. But when you have practiced raising the bar every year and every year, it's like, what more can we do? You know, those are the exciting parts. And then there's a year that's just like, you know what, just not going to be able to surpass that bar from the year before. You just have to accept it as is. And you just have to be silent. And we honestly were like telepathically both just aching and being happy that our kids, you know, did their best to show some contentment for what they were getting. And yet it was hurting us. And I just remember my husband still lying there on the couch. And then he finally said, you know, each of you, whatever it is that you didn't get, well, you'll get at least one. You know, I think he said something like, you'll get one thing that you didn't, that you wish you would have had. And it took everything he could to say that. And from my perspective, you know, it's like, it's tough, you know, when you go through that, because you realize at that point that sometimes love becomes materialistic, because you knew no other way to give it, and, you know, other than your time, your energy, that gets taken for granted many times as parents, right? Because they don't know all the things that you've done just to get to that very point. And so we were kind of like scaling ourselves in that manner of Christmas all the time, because that was our thing, you know. And so I remember how empowered I felt when I saw in the movie The Rock with Dwayne Johnson's dad. And I remember hearing the part where Bruno, their friend, family friend, had said, you know, your dad is a good man. And this was a time where Rocky Johnson, Dwayne Johnson's dad, in his series, you know, was talking about how, or really just trying to shed some goodness and some support to Dwayne Johnson in when at that time their father, his father, had held a secret from the mom who was following to meet up with them, that they had already bought a place, they had a place to stay, and yet here's Dwayne Johnson living with Bruno while the dad was, you know, just perhaps traversing from here and there, staying wherever he could. And you know, that's tough when you see something like that. And yet when you see where Dwayne Johnson is now, and I've heard him say in the past, like, you always have to think that your back is against the wall. You know, it's great to be able to sit down and listen with my youngest son, who just truly admires Dwayne Johnson, and you know, just really being able to know that's going to stick, that's going to let him know, you know, you're going to have times where even though your blessings are so abundant, you may not even see them because you compare it to what you used to have, or what someone else has, or what you think you should have. And then all of a sudden you feel a little bit of a void and emptiness. And that is what I got from that moment of watching, is, you know, you're not alone with that, you know. And yet here are people's successes, and I truly believe that who I am today, who my husband is today, we can look back and know that we have really, really come from a place of training. And you know, to hear my cousin talk of what my family was like, and that was his memory, and obviously living the life that my husband and I have so blessedly been able to live now and continue to grow and progress from it all, it's amazing to say to yourself, no, I don't want to go back to that. And yet you go, but that's what made me. And that is what's important, to know where you've come from, but know where you're going. And that persevering, determined attitude is really coming from that background, you know. And I don't want to say it's fear. Perhaps sometime in life I would have reflected and thought that it is fear, but now it's more of knowing that I don't have to be there. If I had to live in a cave, you know, and things were back to the, you know, without electricity or any of that, I honestly think that I could, because there were many times where, you know, my family was financially tested as a child, and I'm like, man, wow, I could do that, but do I want to? No, you know. And that is that strength of, and that blessing at the same time of knowing that within that strength you can learn to be grateful. You can learn to just have moments where you're laying with your children and your husband or your partner, and you're watching a movie, and it didn't cost anything. It didn't cost anything, and yet the moment is so priceless. And you just look at all your children falling asleep on the floor, and you know, you're covering them up with their blankets, and you're kissing their foreheads, and they will never remember any of that moment because they're fast asleep. And you're looking at your spouse, you're looking at your partner, you know. And just looking at my husband and thinking to myself, wow, you know, this is my life, and I would never do anything to ruin that by thinking I should have more. And so hopefully you're getting that today, you know. And really the lessons, never raising the bar when giving. Even when you do forgive yourself for not being able to raise the bar any further next year. Come back to that piece of love, that moment of just thankfulness, and to being together, being healthy, being safe and secure. That, I think, is what people cannot take away from you. And that is the part that I have been reminded to be grateful for. So in the words of my mother, God bless us all. Keep accepting your growth, keep persevering for more, but it is okay when you feel a little bit depleted. It just gives you more power to do more and do better the next day, but you are still at your greatness by just trying. Have a great day, everyone. We will see you. I'm off to the gym. Take care.